Welcome to Beyond the Jumper. This is episode 2 of the Offseason. We'll be going over NBA trades and then also free agency signings. All right, so the first player I want to talk about today is Paul George. He just recently signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the 76ers. Had a super solid year, averaging 22.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steal, 0.5 blocks. Shot the ball well from the field, 47%, and then shot extremely well from 3 on 41%. And then also that percentage from 3 was on nearly 8 attempts a game, which I think is super impressive for Paul George. So what are your thoughts on him being in Philly?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good sign. I think this makes Philadelphia really good in the East, and it's just a matter if they can stay healthy, because Joel Embiid doesn't really stay healthy towards the end of the year, and then Paul George sometimes doesn't. But I think they're cooking up a good roster, and I think they'll be ready to compete next year for maybe an East title.
Yeah, so I think it was Maxey, George, and Embiid combined for 83.6 points. If you consider all of their averages last year. So, you're getting 84 points from 3 guys, which I think is super impressive. Like you said, Paul George is one of the best two-way players in the NBA. And yes, he's 34, but he's still playing at such a high level. And one thing I want to point out is that he was in the 93rd percentile in the NBA in spot-up shots. So that means when someone's driving and they kick to Paul George, he was one of the best spot-up shooters in the league. And I think playing with Maxey, who can really get to the rim, and I think is going to probably run the point. I think he's going to be able to hit Paul George a lot. And then obviously with Embiid down low, he brings a ton of attention to himself. So having Paul George, I think, being not necessarily in like the superstar role, but as like a second or third option, I think is great for him. And then Philly also bringing in Oubre and Eric Gordon. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I really liked them re-signing Kelly Oubre. I think they got him pretty cheap last year, but I think they also got him pretty cheap again on his new contract. And then they also got Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond back. I think they'll be pretty good next year.
I think they're probably going to be one of the top teams in the East. And if Embiid has a shot at a championship, I think it's with Paul George and Maxey. So I absolutely love the move for the 76ers. So the next player I want to talk about is Mikal Bridges. So kind of the main trade was Mikal Bridges for 5 first-round picks and then Bojan Bogdanovic. What did you think about this trade for New York?
I thought it was a little much. A lot of first-round picks, a lot of picks, but the Knicks are trying to win now, and Mikal Bridges is like another OG Anunoby, another two-way player who can really help. And for their depth, they already had pretty good depth, but they just had an injured roster in the playoffs. But now, Mikal Bridges barely misses games. So, I really like this for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think it's crazy to give 5 first-round picks for Bridges. He was the number 1 guy for Brooklyn, and he didn't even average 20 points a game. Didn't shoot the ball necessarily great from the field, 43%, and then 37% from 3. But I think when you think of Mikal Bridges, I don't think of him as like a go-to scorer.
Yeah.
So I think in kind of like a kind of not in the superstar role, but being alongside Brunson, one of the best point guards in the NBA, I think him and Anunoby is going to be crazy. 2 of the best wing defenders in the league. You have Randall, who was All-NBA 2 years ago. I think that they're kind of loaded. DiVincenzo had a great year, and then you have Josh Hart. They're going to be super solid next year, and this team is scary. I think the Knicks, I think it was a little bit too much, 5 first-round picks for Bridges. Congrats for Brooklyn for getting 5 first-round picks.
Yeah, they need all the picks that they can get.
And then, real quick, Mikal only shot 33.9% off the dribble, which is not good. And I think in New York, we're not going to see him take many shots off the dribble.
No, probably not as many.
He'll be more of an off-ball guy, which I think is a role that he excels in. So, yeah, I absolutely love it for New York. If you had to give a projection of where New York ends their season next year in terms of playoff seeding, what do you think they are?
Probably second or third. Still think Boston's probably number one. But yeah, they were second this year, and I think they can be second again.
Yeah, I mean, they're
But I think the loss of Isaiah Hartenstein might be more than what they. They'll still be really good, but I mean, losing him is kind of big.
just because Mitchell Robinson can't stay healthy, and then we've seen Randall have struggles in the playoffs. If you don't have a center, I think it's tough because you're gonna be going up against Embiid in Philly, and yeah, but overall, love the trade for the New York Knicks. So the next trade I want to talk about is Dejounte Murray. So Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and 2 first-round picks for Dejounte Murray, who came off, I think, a pretty solid year, averaged near 23 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 1.4 steals, shot 46% from the field, and then 36% from 3. What are your thoughts on this trade?
I mean, I really like the trade for the Pelicans. I think they kind of fleeced the Hawks. I mean, Dyson Daniels is a good young player. Larry Nance is a good role player. But yeah, I just thought they would maybe have to trade like Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum or something like that. But no, they just got him for Larry Nance Jr. and Dyson Daniels. And I mean, 2 firsts are good. I don't know if the Hawks are going to go on a rebuilding direction or not, but it just seems that DeJounte and Trey couldn't really play together. They played much better by themselves.
Like when one of them was injured, it
Yeah.
would be like the other one would take over. Yeah, I kind of like. Yeah, obviously I think the Pelicans won this trade, getting Dejounte Murray, another guy that can go get a bucket, and was a super good defender in San Antonio. I think coming to Atlanta, his defense kind of dropped. He had a defensive rating of 119.4, which is worse than D'Angelo Russell. And as we know, D'Lo does not play much defense. But I think DeJounte, just fresh new start. He's going to be playing with Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, 2 elite defenders. You got Zion, and then just another guard alongside McCollum, where I think McCollum doesn't need to be chucking shots. I think in the playoffs we see that a lot with McCollum. And then, do you think Brandon Ingram stays, or do you think he goes?
He hasn't got traded yet, so I think he might stay, but I mean, he could still get traded. We don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think bringing in Dejounte Murray, more than likely Ingram's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they need a center, so maybe they try to get a center for Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, and then in terms of Atlanta, I do like Dyson Daniels, a taller point guard that's kind of more of a defender, not necessarily a scorer. I think going from Trae Young to Dyson Daniels is a good kind of switch in terms of tempo and momentum. I think having a taller guard that can defend, that's a solid passer. Obviously, Dyson Daniels is still young and he's not the best, but I think going from a smaller guard that's super explosive on offense to a backup point guard that doesn't try and do too much and plays defense, I think is kind of my only reason why I kind of like the trade for Atlanta, but the Pelicans absolutely destroyed this trade. And then Klay Thompson, the era in Golden State has ended.
Mm-hmm.
So Klay Thompson in a sign and trade, sending Josh Green to the Hornets, and then 2 second-round picks to the Warriors. Thompson really struggled in that last game for the Warriors. Ended up having kind of his worst season, averaging 18, 43% from the field, 39% from 3. What do you think of this addition for Dallas?
Yeah, I really like it because, as you could see in the playoffs, it was mostly just Kyrie and Luka on offense in some of the games that the role players didn't really step up, especially when they played the Celtics. So Klay will definitely get probably more open opportunities because most people are focused with Luka and Kyrie that he'll be open. And then yeah, I mean Klay, he struggled in the first half of the season and he was pretty good in the second half, but then just that last game is what everybody remembers.
And then I think just all the drama with Draymond and everything, and just Warriors fans being like, Klay should probably be coming off the bench. And there was a report that Steve Kerr told Thompson that Brandon Podziemski was going to be their starter next year, and Thompson was going to come off the bench. Obviously, Klay did not like that. So I absolutely love the trade for Dallas. I still think Clay's an elite 3-point shooter, and playing alongside Kyrie and Luka, two of the best, not only shot creators, but shot creators for their teammates, I think is going to be huge. And yeah, we saw in the playoffs, Dallas couldn't hit a shot unless it was Kyrie or Luka. And I think Klay Thompson coming in is just absolutely huge for them.
Yeah, and I think the defense from Kyrie, Luke, and Clay is probably not going to be that great. But I mean, Clay still, he at least was a good defender. And then when Luka tries, he can be a good defender, or at least average.
Yeah, I think there's going to be games where we see Dallas just absolutely win because of their offense. But then there's going to be games where they lose because I think their defense is just not going to be great. But I think PJ Washington, Derek Lively, and then the addition of Najee Marshall and even Quentin Grimes, I think those are all solid defenders. So I know they lost Derek Jones Jr., but I think they have a solid core in going into next year. And then Kentavious Caldwell Pope signs a 3-year, $66 million deal with Orlando. This is one of my most underrated signings, I think, of the offseason. I absolutely love KCP. Obviously, one of the best defenders in the league. Averaged 10 points, shot 46% from three, almost 41% from three. And then I think he shot around 90% from the free throw line. Absolutely love this. What do you think about it for Orlando?
Yeah, I really like it because Orlando really needs shooters, and KCP is one of the best. And I mean, Gary Harris, you saw in the playoffs, just wasn't cutting it, even though they didn't re-sign him. But KCP is just a lot better, and someone that they could rely on the two. And I mean, he's a really good defender too. So I mean, they got defenders all over the place. So
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lineup of Suggs and KCP. They're going to be the 1 and 2, two outstanding defenders, and I think KCP is a huge upgrade from Gary Harris. And we're Cavs fans, so in the playoffs against the Magic, there were games where the Magic just couldn't hit an open 3-point shot. And adding KCP, not only a dude that just wins, but is an elite defender and can shoot the ball, I think is huge for them. And then obviously having Paulo and Franz. I mean, dude, this Magic team is going to be super fun to watch. Already great defensively. Adding KCP, I think, makes them even better. Going into next year, where do you have the Magic ranked?
I think in terms of the East standings, I think they'll probably be like 4 or 5. Yeah, there's still teams better than them, but they were the 5 seed last year, and I just think they could definitely be maybe the 4 seed at the highest, but yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love this Orlando team. I think they're going to make noise in the playoffs next year. Super underrated signing, and KCP is one of my favorite role players, so I think Orlando absolutely killed it signing him. And then the last guy that we're going to talk about, Chris Paul, signed a 1-year, $11 million deal to go play in San Antonio with our boy Wemby. Didn't have a crazy year. 9 points, 7 assists, shot 44% from the field, 37% from three. Why do you think this is a good signing for San Antonio?
This is a good signing because Wemby actually has someone that can give him the ball up in the post and up high. And Chris Paul is one of the best playmakers of all time, one of the best passers. Yeah, he's old, but he can still pass.
Mm-hmm. He's just one of the best facilitators of all time as well. I think I was looking at DeAndre Jordan's stats. DeAndre Jordan was all NBA.
Yeah, he was all NBA first team.
Multiple times with Chris Paul. And I think that high pick and roll with Wemby, with Chris Paul's just IQ and playmaking ability, I think is going to be so fun next year. And obviously, I think their biggest need was point guard. We thought that they might draft somebody kind of at point guard. I know they drafted Stephon Castle. Didn't necessarily play point guard in college, but he did play in high school. And I think if they're planning on him being the next point guard after CP3, Chris Paul is the best mentor you could have.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge signing. Do you think San Antonio jumps into the playoffs next year, or what do you think their trajectory is?
I think at best they could be a play-in team, but like I don't think they're jumping into more than top 6 seeds because the West is just so good and like Chris Paul is getting older. Like I mean he's a good addition obviously, but I don't know how much he'll help them towards winning.
Yeah, because I mean, I love Devin Vassell, love Wimby. I think Sochan can be a little. I think he can be a little selfish at times, not getting the ball to Wimby. We've seen, but I think it's a good start. I thought they had a solid draft. I really like Stephon Castle, but I think bringing in CP3 is just going to change everyone's mentality. I think Popovich is going to love him, and I think we're going to see Chris Paul. He might average double digits assists next year, just because playing with Wimby. I mean, Chris Paul, we might see him throw an average of 6 lobs a game to Wimby.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we just watched Wimby play in the Olympics qualifier against it was Turkey, and they were just throwing him lobs the whole game.
Yeah.
And I mean, he caught everything and just dunked it. So I'm super excited. I think it's a great signing for San Antonio.